We were at the World Cup in France in '98, and we got knocked out in the quarterfinals against Brazil. So that's quite late in the tournament. I'm phoning the manager up, and I go, "Okay, we're out. When do you want me back?" And he goes, "Tomorrow." I can't come back tomorrow. I now know I've got 11 months of football ahead of me with no break, you know, and I was drained. You know, the manager and the chairman, they pulled me and my agent. They wanted to, you want to stay, please stay, you know, and no, I've made my decision. I'm ready to leave. And, you know, how can you top this, by the way? You've just won the treble. It's not a bad time to leave the club.
So no regrets around the way you left?
Absolutely, massive regrets. Massive regrets. I never made a mistake. I was just a very confident guy, to be fair.
You're watching Kickin It, presented by Modelo.
Welcome to Kickin It, to one of the greatest goalkeepers in history, Manchester United legend, Danish hero, Peter Schmeichel. It's good to sit with you.
It's good to sit with you.
You know that you are, of course, a United great. I grew up in Manchester as a United fan, so it's cool for me to just even know you in this kind of capacity. I think, obviously, we worked together on CBS. And one of the best memories that CBS has given me was when they surprised me by sending my father to go to a game that you were at.
Brilliant. Unfortunately, it was Man City.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was. It was at the Etihad, wasn't it?
It was. Oh my God, he had the greatest day.
Peter, he really did have the greatest day.
It was so good, and you know, it was funny because we wanted to pick him up and bring him there, and obviously take him home again and make sure that he would. No, absolutely not. And as a true Mancunian, no. I'll make my own way. I'll go on the train. I'll come in myself. I leave. And he was so humble. And even though it was Man City, it was such a great day for him. And to surprise you, being on the two-way was a big thing for him. And then I remember at halftime, because at Man City, they serve massive pies at halftime in the media room. And the floor managers, they always, as soon as it half finishes, they run because they want to get these pies out, you know. I remember your dad sitting there.
I've got the picture of him.
Oh my God, it's funny.
Eating the pie.
No, it was a good day. It was. And your father, what a nice man.
It was a great day for him. And I know that, you know, obviously for him, he's somebody who grew up in Manchester as well, grew up a United fan, and to be able to just spend time with somebody like you and for you to treat him as well as you did, in part just because you're a gentleman, but I also thought that was partly just because he was a United fan and you seem to have this real love for the city and for the people.
Yeah, it was, I don't know where it came from. There's always been in my life a connection with England. I always knew that I was going to live in England. I always knew I was going to come there. I grew up as a Manchester United fan. I always not knew, but felt that I was going to play for the club as well.
That's a weird thing to feel, isn't it?
Massively weird, massively. And I can't explain where it came from. I don't understand it myself. When I think about your father, right? What I experienced when I came to Manchester was incredible kindness and very high to the ceiling, you know. Whatever you wanted to be, you could be there. People accepted you for what you were. And just humble people, working hard, enjoying life, enjoying the football. And when I met your father, it was the same kind of mentality I met that I fell in love with when I first arrived. So it was a big day for me as well.
Thank you, I appreciate that. We actually showed the picture at his funeral, the picture of the two of you together, because it meant so much to him, and I think it made him famous amongst his friends for a day or two, you know what I mean? So it was a very cool moment for us as a family. I appreciate you. I wanted to talk to you about that kind of the Manchester United period, because I think one of the things looking back that's surprising to me is the age that you were, 27 years old when you start that United career. It feels like a late explosion onto such a big stage, right? Do you think there was any benefit to you to kind of coming to that level of fame later, coming to that level of the game later in life?
Yeah, I mean, where I'm from, Denmark, obviously not a lot of the goalkeepers came out of Denmark. At the time, it was English goalkeepers were a lot better than or British goalkeepers were a lot better than everybody else. They were used to the game, and not a lot of goalkeepers were brought into the English game, and certainly not from a country like Denmark. So it was a difficult duck to break, really. I had to do some work myself. I met up with an agent, which was very unusual at the time that you had agents as well. I met up with an agent who said, well, I really like what you're doing. You know, I want to work with you. What do you want? And I said, I want to get to Manchester United. And he then started to sort of keep putting my name towards Alex Ferguson, keep putting my name. And I know at some point he started to scout me. And the guy he sent out was a guy who was... He was my goalkeeping coach when I arrived, and he'd come back after one game and said, "You got to sign this kid." I wasn't even a kid at the time. Coincidentally, we were doing pre-season training in Spain, and this is when the pressure was really, really on Alex Ferguson. And they had this FA Cup match against Hereford, and the weather back in England was so bad, so he took the team for warm weather training in Spain, in the same hotel, on the same pitch. So training on the same pitch as we, and because it was Man United, they took priority. So we're training before us on that one single pitch. So we were coming in after them, and he then he says he hit behind a bush. I can't imagine that to be true. But that's what he said. And he was seeing this guy that he'd heard about from Alan Hutchinson, the goalkeeping coach, and he was seeing him for the first time, shouting, screaming, saving everything, and he made his mind up there. That's the guy I'm going to go for. So he came in for me that summer. My club, Brøndby, asked for far too much money, £1.2 million. And Man United weren't prepared to pay that. So it didn't happen that year. I was crushed. I was devastated.
You thought it had gone?
Oh, because they needed a goalkeeper. There's no doubt about that. So somebody else would get the chance, I thought, right? We get into September. I get a phone call by the agent I worked with. He had an assistant. He said, come to my house after training, which wasn't unusual. So I came to the house, and Alex Ferguson was there. And he said, he's just literally just flown in. He said, I came to tell you that I've seen what I want. I'm going to come back for you in the summer. So make sure you work hard, you train well, you play well, and I'll see you in the summer. Shook my hand and left. And I'm like, what? So I knew that he was going to come back. Well, I was hoping that he was keeping his words. And he did. And so I came, that was then the summer of 91. Then I came to Man United. So that kind of explains a little bit about the age as well.
And you know, when you first got to Manchester United, you kind of, it feels like you came with your own ideas about things that were important to you, the style of goalkeeping that you wanted to impose, the way you wanted to train. You wanted to train with the rest of the team, not just train individually with the other keepers, which would have been normal at the time, right? To come in, and you said, you know, the English game at that point wasn't used to people coming in from the outside and taking those goalkeeper roles. Did that feel difficult to impose yourself? Where did that confidence come from to say, this is what I need?
I don't know. I might just be a little bit different than other people. When I came for my first training session, so pre-season, I grew up with pre-season being the hardest part of being a footballer. You know, this is 2 months of being tired every day. You know, all you do is train, eat, and sleep. That's all you've had.
Is pre-season now different?
Pre-season in England, I found out was different. But then, as context, the season is different as well, because you actually play from start to finish without any breaks. So you kind of don't want to peak in September. So you take pre-seasons a little bit easier, where in Denmark we have, you know, 2 periods where you can play. You can play when the weather becomes better in the spring, and then you play in the autumn. So you've got to be ready from day one. So pre-season in Denmark was always very, very, very hard. So I'm preparing myself. We're going to run. And Brian Kidd, the coach, he goes, right, we're doing boxes. And I'm like, okay, what boxes? We're supposed to run. And he goes, Pete, you can go with Gary Walsh and the other goalkeeper, you can go and do some half volleys. And I'm like, no. On my first day, no, I'm in the boxes. And everyone went, no, we don't want goalkeepers in the boxes. And I said, well, yes, I am. And I went. So we always have the old players and the young players. There's 2 boxes, right? So I went in the older one, just stood there and waited. And it was really embarrassing. Everyone was just looking at this guy, you know, who is... And eventually, you know, they had to start. And from that day on, now we were always, all the goalkeepers were always in the boxes. And I think, I mean, it was just natural to me because that's what I was used to. And the thing is, at the time, the rules were a lot different to what it is now. And the way you play is a lot different. So in this period that was ahead, like 2, 3, 4 years, the back pass rule changed. The way we played changed. So all of a sudden, I wasn't trying to prove anything, but this whole trust thing came good to me because they understood that I could actually deal with the ball with my feet and stuff.
It made more sense to them.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I don't know. I mean, is it confidence? Is it self-belief or what? I don't know what it is, but I knew that was the way that I wanted to work. And when
did you feel like you had to earn their respect to some extent?
Yeah, of course.
And was there a moment where you felt like, I got it?
So our season had finished quite close to when pre-season started, so I came in really good shape, and I was flying in training, really, really flying. And everyone, they're like this, who is this guy, you know? And they didn't know me. They didn't know me at all. And at this point, I probably played about 40 times for Denmark. Still didn't know who I was. And everything was going good. And then the moment I knew that they respected me, I knew who it was, because there was a Japanese team at our training ground, and they organized a game against this Japanese team. And somebody had a shot from 40 yards, which went in the top corner, which I should have saved. And because they highlighted that and were laughing at it, I knew that was kind of respect. That was kind of an acceptance to who I was, because they expected me to save that.
Right.
So at that moment, I felt that, you know, okay, I'm okay, I'm respected here. So.
Do you remember the first moment going into the dressing room and what that experience was like? Because obviously you're going in there as a United fan as well. As something, this is like the culmination of a dream. What was it like? Who were you?
I think that moment is a couple of months before I actually started pre-season there. I actually started as a player, because I went to Manchester in, I think it was in May when I started in July, to finalize the deal. And I'm thinking, I'm there with my agent. I go up to Martin Edwards, the chairman's office, and I'm thinking, okay, we're going to sit down. We're going to probably not negotiate too much, because I think most was already agreed. And he said, all right, come. So he took me to the museum, and we went around the museum for a couple of hours. And he just wanted to make absolutely clear to me what my responsibility as a player for Manchester United would be. To respect the past, respect the history and the traditions of the club, and understand who people were. And Manchester United is a team, or is a club, where players has literally given their lives for the club. And all of that was really important to him. That was a moment for me. That was a moment where, you know, wow, I'm now part of this. And this has been my dream all over my life. So that was a moment for me. The dressing room was weird, because I arrived from Denmark. I'm now moving to England, so you can imagine how much luggage I have. I get picked up by the kit man Norman Davies in the manager's car. I'm thinking I can drop my stuff off at the hotel. No, go to the training ground, because we're in the manager's car. I have to take all my stuff out and put it in the dressing room, the smallest dressing room in the world. And I'm in about an hour before everybody else, and you can imagine, you know, being new to a place, how awkward that would have been. I'm just sat there, and players are walking in one by one during that hour, and I have all my luggage there. That was a weird one.
Who was good at making you feel comfortable in the dressing room? Did anybody take that upon
so
themselves?
first of all, Brian Robson was the captain. And I ended up sitting next to him, and what a fantastic person he is. Steve Bruce, which played in front of me, quite quickly came to me and said, because I was looking for somewhere to live as well, he said, there's a house next door to mine, which is is empty, and we ended up living there for 8 years, and that was fantastic to be. I mean, Steve and Janet, I mean, without them, it would have been a very different experience for the whole family, I think. But that was brilliant.
Well, how did they help you? What?
With everything. Every time there was a question, I came over with 2 kids, a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, so a nearly 5-year-old. So he had to go to school. So how do you do that? Little things like, how do you pay a gas bill?
Just learning to navigate the system in a different country.
Just little things. And what are the rules of cricket, Steve Bruce, every day after training, would go back, because there's a test match. There was test matches on at the time. I think they were in Australia. Come over and have a cup of tea, and I'm sitting there watching this game, which I do not understand, having a nice cup of tea with Steve, and he go, oh, brilliant. I'm like, what happened, So I at this time, I'm thinking, in order to fit in, I have to get myself around the game of cricket, So he helped me with that. But it was everything. It was nice because Steve and Janet, they have a boy and a girl like we have, and they're both a year older than my boy girl. So it was kind of really, really nice to sort of have, and we would go, once, twice, we'd go, to the Chinese for dinner and stuff like that. It became a lot easier to fit in, which I think that is key in order to become good enough to play for a club like Man United.
Obviously, you said you like to keep some normal experiences. You had a lot of experiences with United that weren't so normal, a lot of highs, right? 5 Premier League titles in total. The first one you won in your second season at United, I think, which ended like a 26-year drought without United winning a title. You kept 22 clean sheets that year, so, so pivotal in them getting across that line and actually winning that title. The celebration for that, how did the celebration for a title in those kind of circumstances where a team knows how long it's been since they've been at the top, how did that celebration rank in comparison to other Premier League titles, a Champions League win?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I very often get asked, what's the big thing? What was the biggest trophy? What's the biggest achievement? And I always go there 3. So I go, of course, a treble that we won in '99, which unbelievable to be part of that. And you go for 6 months not losing a game, the confidence that brings, everything that, the whole thing was just incredible. Then winning the European Championship with Denmark is of course the next high. But I always say winning the first Premier League, getting it over the line for Manchester United after so many, many years, a club that claims to be the biggest club in the world, but at the time couldn't produce the one result that they wanted to produce, was just unbelievable. And the way we won it was so weird, because we were playing. So it was between Aston Villa, Norwich, and us. So we get to a point where we got 2 games left. We got Blackburn on a Monday night at Old Trafford and Wimbledon away. And we know by winning those 2 games, then we'll win it. But Aston Villa, who was at the time the only team who could take it away from us, were playing Oldham. And I came back home, and I remember, as you do the day before, just going for a nap. And then I woke up and I realized, oh yeah, by the way, if Oldham win, we are the champions.
Right.
Yeah. So I turn on the TV, and Oldham, it's 10 minutes to go, Oldham are 1-0 up. And, it would have been funny had there been cameras in my house, because I turn it off again, and I hide behind the sofa. Then I turn it on again, and I look over the sofa like that, and it's still 1. And it's just those 10 minutes were just crazy. Turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, hide. just didn't know where to put myself, right? The game ended, and where we lived at the end of a cul-de-sac. So I'm here and Brucey's over here. So, and people could kind of come up, and they used to do that, not very often at that time, but they'd come up, turn around and go back out and see where we live. Game ended. Within 10 minutes, you know, it was mayhem. Absolute people coming up, celebrating, flags out. We are now the champions. And in a way, we kind of didn't know. I mean, we didn't even expect it. And within an hour, everyone was in Bruce's house. So we had a party, and there was a phone call, and Bruce goes, "It's a gaffer, the manager," and it's on speakerphone. "Oh, congratulations, boys! I know you're there. Take it easy. We've got a game tomorrow. No alcohol, right?" And we play this game the next day. It's at 8 o'clock kickoff, and I helped Brucey clean up the next day.
Was alcohol drunk?
Yeah. And that was evident in the first 10 minutes of that game we played. But the funny thing is, we did actually, I think apart from the first 10 minutes against Blackburn, we played our best game that season. We were a good team. But that week that followed was just incredible. Just incredible. The whole plays just changed. All of a sudden, we are not this near team. Now we are a winning team. And to be part of the team that got it over the line was amazing, and something that I'm very, very proud of.
How does a footballer feel when you come to the end of a season? An end of a season and you're on a high like that, you've won the title, it's gone as well as it could go. Now you've got however many weeks until it starts again.
Weird.
Is it easy to disconnect? Do you have to come down? Like, what kind of emotional state are you in?
Completely weird. So I'll give you an example from when we came back from Barcelona after I won the treble, secured the treble. So win the Premier League, the Champions League final against Bayern Munich in the most incredible way. And of course, we had those 10 days with the Premier League on the Sunday, FA Cup on the Saturday, and then on the Wednesday night, we had the Champions League final. So it was a pressure cooker, right? You didn't really exist. It's all about those 3 games. So when the final whistle went in Barcelona, I went blank completely. And I've spoken to so many guys that were saying, can't remember anything. We don't have our own memories other than people's stories and pictures and little films of this and that. And of course, we had this party which went all night that I can't remember anything about. And then you go on the bus and you're flying back home. And we knew that we were then going on the open-top bus from the airport, and you know the geography here, and it was packed, absolutely packed. And the noise, I remember the noise from Deansgate, and you're still kind of like, haven't really kind of realized what you've done and all that. You have the 3 trophies there, it's brilliant, you know, but kind of, then we went into the Manchester Evening News Arena, and we've just been through this inferno of noise, and it's packed, absolutely packed. So the gaffer, Burkina, and myself, we bring a trophy in each, and we have to say a couple of words, blah, 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 blah. And then we go out the back way onto the team bus to go back to the airport where we 5-6 days before or 7 days before left our cars to go to London.
Right.
That trip is the most quiet I've ever been. There was no one said a word, and it was so anticlimactic. It was so crazy. It's just that. And the next day I flew back to Denmark.
I always wondered to what extent you could really enjoy that win. Obviously, that's like a career high. A treble is insane. But at the same time, you knew it was your last game. You knew it was the end of a chapter and you were moving on. So was it tinged with sadness for you, or were you able to celebrate the achievement and then move on with your thinking?
Yeah, well, we celebrated. Obviously, we celebrated after the game in Barcelona. The reality of being a footballer at that level was that I had to go back to Denmark because I was joining up with Denmark.
Right.
So we had more games to play. So I couldn't hang back and and celebrate there. Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a bit weird because leaving was my own choice. I had to leave. I felt this was the feeling that I had from July the year before, moving into maybe mid-October. I was drained. I had no energy. I had no extra energy. I had no appetite for going through another season. There's so many things. Because I've just literally just gone 4 years of no break. Because I had in the non-tournament, so no World Cup or European Championship summer breaks, I had operations. So I was either recovering or I was at the tournament, and I had to go straight back. And we were at the World Cup in France in '98, and we got knocked out in the quarterfinals against Brazil. So that's quite late in the tournament. I'm phoning the manager up, and I go, okay, we're out. When do you want me back? And he goes, tomorrow. I can't come back tomorrow. Well, because back then, if you were runners-up in the Premier League, which we were, you had to play the playoffs to get into the Champions League. He says, we've got our most important games are already before the season. One of them is before the season starts. So you have to come back. And eventually I got 10 days. And I'm like, God, I now know I've got 11 months of football ahead of me with no break, and I was drained. So I had that feeling, and it went on for like 2.5 months. And I made the decision, and I stood by it. And once I made that decision, I never thought about it. And then, of course, after the game in Barcelona, the manager and the chairman, they pulled me and my agent. They wanted to, you want to stay? Please stay, and a little bit. We already packed the house. No, I've made my decision. I'm ready to leave. And how can you top this? By the way, you've just won the treble. It's not a bad time to leave the club. And that again.
So no regrets around the way you left?
Absolutely, massive regrets. Massive regrets. I mean, that was a silly decision. That was just stupid, Why would you leave Man United? Why?
You felt like you took
I still had 4 more years. I still played really well for 4 more years. And probably if I'd stayed, I probably could have played more, 5, 6 years. The thing about which is something that I really truly regret. I know my manager very well. I knew exactly what he was made of. I knew I could talk to him about everything, all my issues, and he would listen and he would accommodate any wishes that I had if I was still the player that he wanted to have. So I should have spoken to him. I said, I want to play every game, but I also know I'm getting into a period where I probably can't play every game. And, could we work around that? I should have done that, and I should have stayed. I mean, why would I leave Man United?
What do you think stopped you from doing that?
Sorry?
What do you think stopped you from doing that?
Pride. Because, the misconception there is that you had to be this tough guy. You had to be sort of the impregnable.
Right.
Yeah, otherwise you wouldn't fit in, which I think was wrong. But this is something I realized in later life. Yeah, it's taken me many, many years to come to that conclusion.
But it's kind of a relevant conversation still now today, isn't it? Because we're talking about player welfare all the time. Is the burden too heavy, the physical burden? But it sounds like there's also a real mental side to that burden. Yeah. Is that maybe underestimated, like the mental cost on players of that relentlessness?
I think yes. The one thing we have to establish when we have this conversation is today there's no loyalty in football anymore. It's players, it's clubs, it's coaches, everything. A lot of coaches, it's short time, 2 years, 3 years maximum. Clubs have a different view of how playing staff is supposed to be, part of it, and of course players as well. So when you look at, for instance, what Arsene Wenger started out to do when he became the director of football for FIFA. So the first thing he said, I'm going to change is a calendar. I'm going to now make sure that players every year gets 4 weeks, mandatory break. You cannot even train. That's important. And we're gonna group up qualifiers, either where we do everything in 1 month or we do it in 2 loads. And we're going to take care of, because now there are so many players from everywhere in the world playing in Europe and especially in England. So we're going to cut down to the bare minimum of traveling as well, player welfare. Now, what has happened in reality is they put a Club World Cup in, which we will see the effects this year. We will see, PSG,
in
Chelsea.
Injury or in...
Well, we always see with Chelsea. Have you seen the number of injuries they have? That's
PSG,
not looking after the players, And I think that is wrong. And I think you should look after players more than that. And that's definitely not only a mental side to it, but there's also a physical side to it. You need breaks. You absolutely need breaks. I come from a different time in football. I come from, different breed of players, if you like. I come from a time, so my beginning is probably the end of where kids grow up next to the stadium, dreaming about playing for the first team in there, and they will do anything in their power to get a game. So that has now changed because now players are coming from everywhere. You don't, I don't want to use the word desperation because I think that's too powerful a word, but there's an energy in that this is my chance in life and I will not let it go. So that's where I came in at the end of that.
Right.
And that slowly changed by the introduction of the Premier League and the money that came in that you can now start recruit from different parts of the world. So you had probably mentally stronger players at the time. I'm not saying players are weak, because I don't think they are now, but it's just different generation as well. Kids are now being brought into the world and being brought up different to what they were 10 years ago and 20 years and 25 years ago. My kids are brought up different to what their kids are being brought up. And that's just,
how that goes, right.
Exactly. But that manifests itself in football as well. Of course it does. So I think now I think it really is important that you look at the mental side and you take care of players. I think it is, and you have bigger squads. So now Premier League squad is 25. You have 5 substitutions. So if you think about when the Premier League first was introduced, you had 2 substitutions. Now, if you are one of those players who not get subbed on, you don't start the game. You can be out for a very, very long time. What's that going to do to your mental health? Not feeling, but you get more chances of playing now. So everything is so much different than what it was.
Yeah, because you grew up in an era where there was no team psychologist, I imagine. Like, that didn't exist, sports psychology in the same way. There's the pressure of playing for Man United and being in that level. There's also the pressure of being a goalkeeper, where I feel like if you make a mistake, everybody's looking at you. Yeah. Did you have coping mechanisms?
Yeah, I think that was part of my talent. I never made a mistake. No, seriously, I never. And it was important for me to understand that I never made a mistake. Of course I make mistakes, I know that. And you make mistakes you can't explain. It's for everyone to see, whoa, that went through his hands and it's in the back of the net, yeah. But in every game you do little things that you're not happy with, that I class as a mistake. But I used it to work on becoming better. So I would kind of say, okay, I did this and I wasn't quite happy with that. I'll try to sort of replicate that in training and see if I can come up with a different solution. And then I was just a very confident guy, to be fair. I always...
Nothing ever rattled you? You never dealt with self-doubt?
So when I first started out as a professional, semi-pro, I had a job, so I worked during the week, and then we would play, the team that I played for, we played our home games on Sundays at 7 o'clock in the evening. So once we got to the weekend, Friday, then it was all about the game. And I was so nervous. I was, oh my God, I mean, fiddling around, couldn't sit still. It was painful, but as soon as we got to the game, I was fine. But that period running up to it, because it was the most important thing in my life. So I then signed with Brøndby, and this is when I go full time. And they had already qualified for the Champions League quarterfinal, and we've been drawn against Porto. This is 1987. They end up winning it. So my first game for Brøndby is a quarterfinal in the Champions League.
Which is wild, yeah.
So it's a bit wilder than what I've experienced. I've never played in front of more than, I don't know, 7,000 people or something like that. Now I'm going to Das Antas in Portugal, or in Porto, where can't remember, 45,000 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
We leave the hotel on the team bus going to the game with a police escort, and we're driving down this road where the cars are literally just being pushed up to the. I've never been on a coach with a police escort, and I'm sat at the back, and I can down the corridor. I'm seeing this happening in front of me, and the biggest wish I have in my life at this point is that we crash.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, crash, so we don't have to play this game. I can't handle this. Seriously. So we get saved. Unfortunately, we get to the stadium in one piece. We get there, and it's the old stadium. It's old, so the dressing rooms are behind the goal, but you have a running track. So there's you have to go down a set of stairs, and there's a corridor where you go a tunnel, and then you come up behind the goal. So I'm so nervous. I get to halfway, and I'm kind of I stopped, and it's like I'm going out of myself over to here to look at myself, and I go, Pete, what are you doing? I mean, your whole life, you've been dreaming about these games, the biggest games, in front of big crowds, televised, everything, and you are afraid, and you're nervous. What's that all about? And I decided that I would never be nervous again. And that next bit, not nervous, just disappeared, and I was never, ever nervous in a game again.
Watching your documentary, which I watched recently, and which is brilliant, by the way, everybody should watch that. I think it struck me somehow how, I guess you see two different sides to you. You see the person that I see in front of me, and I deal with it, on CBS when we do our broadcasts, who seems very calm, very zen, enjoying life. And then you see the version of you as a player where you were so totally committed to the sport that it brought out this, I don't know if aggression is the right word, but this kind of, the competitiveness was ferocious. Yeah. Do you prefer the person you are now, or do you think that was necessary in that time of life, and now it's cool to be different?
Yeah, you can't be like that in your life. It's impossible to be competitive and aggressive all the time. It wears you out, for sure, and it doesn't make you a particularly nice person, because sometimes you don't know where the boundaries are, and you don't know when it's appropriate to be like that and when it's not.
Did it take a toll on your relationships within the team?
At times, yes. But I have to say that we were like that.
That was the Manchester United culture?
Yeah. It was very much a... No, that's a bigger word. Man United culture is a lot more. It's very much an Alex Ferguson team player thing to have. A lot of it was by design as well. So I was very deliberate in trying to be as arrogant and as annoying as I could be to my opponents, and ignoring them and being, because I wanted them to think about me. If they found themselves in a situation where they, for instance, was one-on-one against me, I wanted them to think that they're up against me and not they have a chance to score. That little thing that you could take away from that concentration by making them think about you. It was
mental warfare.
Exactly. It drains you to be like that all the time. And for many years, as a player as well, I thought that I was good enough as a human being to turn it on and off. But when you look back and you understand your life as it was at the time, you understand that I wasn't. Of course you was. No one can be like that. And it's not a regret. It's I did what I wanted to do.
You accept it.
And the way to do it was that. So it's interesting when obviously my kids are now older, and we talk a lot about this and how it was back then, and yes, there were times where it wasn't the best way that was, but they wouldn't change it for the world. because they were part of that as well. It was a great experience and a great period of their life as well. And of course, for Kasper, who's moved on to do the same, what he learned from that, he's been able to use that in his own career, and he's been a lot better at doing it than I was. So it's worked out quite well, if you like, in that respect.
One of the things I've really got to enjoy on the show is watching your and Kasper's bond, because obviously we had Celtic last season, and we were watching, we were sending you to the games, and you got to go and watch your son, and we got to watch you watch your son. One of the things I saw in your documentary that I thought was so interesting was you talking about your experience of him winning. So plays for Celtic now, but formerly played for Leicester, and won the Premier League and the FA Cup, in famous wins for that club. And you said that was the best you've ever felt, or the best way you've ever experienced a win in the Premier League like that. Help me understand that, considering that the highs that you've had in your personal career in the Premier League. How could that one feel the best?
When you win it yourself, you're part of it, and you kind of know what you're doing. Okay, the first one was really, really difficult to get over the line, but then you become a winner, and with someone like Sir Alex Ferguson, you're supposed to win the next one as well. So you are that. You're expected to win that. You know what goes into it, and you do it, and it's fantastic, right? Well, when your kid is, and the way they did it, and with the football club that he's done it with, when then he goes and is doing it, and you see him there on the pitch lifting that trophy, that was just, for me, that was the best, because it's much more important. Football is important. My career was important, of course, but your kids are more important, and what they do becomes more important once you get them. It's much more important, everything they do, and you don't want them to get hurt. You don't want them to lose, and you know exactly what they've gone through, and then to be on that pitch and lifting that trophy was unbelievable. He's a born winner, and that's what I meant with.
How's that from you?
Not from me only. I can't. It's impossible for me to take credit for his career, because I know what he's done. I know how hard he's worked. I know how much he's studied other goalkeepers, but I also know how much he studied the young kids when they first came into the team. When he came to training with me, he saw the Scholes, the Beckhams, the Gary Nevilles, the Phil Nevilles, the Nicky Butt. He saw how hard they worked and what you needed to do in order to be successful. He saw that, and he's sort of taken stuff from all of these, and he's made it his own. And I'm incredibly proud of what he's done.
We get to do CBS shows together. I enjoy you out there. I love the interviews that you do. I think you have this way of speaking to people that just kind of, you ask the right questions and the tough questions, but you do it in a way that is respectful of the human experience and the person behind the player. I really enjoy that. I often think it's an unenviable position in some ways, though, because we're the group in the studio. You're over there, you're working with, an earpiece, you've got a lot of, sound going on around you, just a lot happening to kind of deal with and take in. You've got Jamie, who's got a quick mouth in the studio. You've got the United-Liverpool rivalry. Do you ever feel a bit isolated out there? Or like it's kind of hard to pop back at Jamie the way you would like to? Or do you feel like you get those in? I think you do pretty well at getting those in.
Do you know what? This comes down to technology. The problem is if there is a delay. The delay kills you, because it stops the momentum of what you're saying, or I might be waiting. So if Jamie says something... It
looks like you don't have an answer for him.
Exactly.
Right.
If Jamie says something and the delay is 3 seconds, so I might not say anything for 3 seconds on the output, and that makes me look like I'm thinking about whatever,
Yes.
So and that's the only thing. I kind of think it's all right. I mean, Jamie gives, but he can also take.
Yes, he
can. And it's fine, and it's all good-hearted. It's just it's a bit of fun. I really like being out. I really like being out there.
I'm interested what the kind of the reaction has been, because obviously I feel like in Europe as a whole, there can still be that kind of like snobbery around Americanism in football. And so I wonder, what was that like in the very beginning, because you were with us from the very beginning. What was that like in the very beginning when you would say who you're working for and it's CBS and it's an American network, versus now where, the popularity of the show has given it kind of a different status, I think. Have you seen like a journey with that?
I've absolutely seen the journey. It's interesting. I think that our show has more viewers in Denmark than the Danish show. Not as they are watching the show from start to finish, but the social media one. Everyone talks about it. It's brilliant. People love it. They like the banter. They like the loudness of Micah, the quietness of Thierry, you know, and they like the little bit of nasty stuff from Jamie as well. And then, of course, it's all run by you, which is, you know, I always say this, and it's not because we sat here, but you are the best in the business. And that's why you did the Ballon d'Or, by the way, and congratulations for that. But no, it's a really, really popular program. And everywhere I go, you know, people talk about this. So I mentioned that so Viaplay's got the Premier League in 5 territories. We now do a program where we're on location in English for the 5. So it's Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Holland. We do it in English. And we have no complaints about English, which is interesting. But the thing is, we can't do the program we do. We can't. It's kind of impossible. What we try to do is the social media bit of it. We're trying to do the same thing, and we can see how our program grows in popularity by focusing on that. And that's what we've learned from our show. Our show is incredible. People, I mean, my wife Laura, she's got 16 and 18-year-old. They can't see the show. They're obviously not watching it in Denmark, but they know everything that's gone on. And they talk to me about that. So, and that's how popular it is. And it's been amazing to be part of that. It's really interesting to see the growth of that and the popularity of our football in America.
Yes,
that is something. I'm very, very proud to be a small part of that development, to bring football into to the US, our football into the US. I'm very proud of that. And I think that our football in the US is going to be massive, absolutely incredibly big.
Well, World Cup is only going to make it bigger as well, isn't it? So this is going to be a big summer for us. But I love being part of the show, and I love working with you. So thank you so much. I appreciate you giving me the time today.
Thank you.
You know how much love and respect I have for you. To give me a hug with your head. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
You're watching Kickin It, presented by Modelo.